The Azerbaijan Grand Prix in Baku has concluded with a tremendous show of strength by Max Verstappen, who clinches a fantastic victory. This marks Red Bull's second victory since the summer break. First in Monza, now in Baku. Verstappen takes the lead in the standings in Baku ahead of Russell, giving him a 14-second gap, 14 seconds from Russell. At third is Sainz, his first podium with Williams. The first podium with Williams achieved before Lewis Hamilton in Ferrari. This is a fact that is quite concerning, given the premises of this 2025. Fourth, Antonelli. Great Kimi, great performance, who finds himself close to Russell anyway, and had an excellent race, excellent management. He was too instinctive, as had happened in the Netherlands, and thus had a great race, finishing fourth. Fifth, Lawson. Sixth, Tsunoda. Tsunoda's sixth position shows that Red Bull is growing, so watch out. Seventh is Norris, who once again had a short arm, in my opinion, in this race where his teammate, we'll talk about it later, made serious mistake in the first part of the race. And then Norris couldn't exploit, in my opinion, the full potential of his McLaren. But let's talk. Let's start talking about Ferrari. Hamilton, ninth, Leclerc. By the way, we saw at the end the little scene where Hamilton wanted to give the position back to Leclerc, but couldn't. Anyway, a Ferrari performance not up to par from my point of view. Ferrari was somewhat a letdown this weekend because, considering Friday's expectations, they were Friday's champions. They went in with a very strong race pace, and then come Saturday, they're unable to stay up front with the others and lose a lot, also due to the track temperatures, unfavorable conditions. Certainly a bit of bad luck, but what was missing was both qualifying pace and race pace. And in today's Formula 1, qualifying is fundamental. We've seen how starting in front allows you to have a great race, finish in front, for example. Also McLaren, we've seen it in Sainz's race, we've seen it in Lawson's race. That is, drivers who didn't have McLaren's pace that managed to finish in front after 51 laps of the race, because you can manage the race pace better if you start in front. Obviously, it's harder to overtake. That said, I remind you before analyzing all the episodes of the race to leave a like, subscribe, and activate notifications so you don't miss any videos on the channel. Let's analyze every episode of every qualifying session and race, and then let's analyze all the Formula 1 and Ferrari-themed news. I sincerely thank you for all the support messages and comments. Let's then respond to everyone. That said, let's start immediately by analyzing the start, and let's first review the start scene from above, and thus seen on all the drivers, and then let's analyze the start also of the two Ferrari drivers. Let's see it together, and let's see exactly who made the most serious mistake, namely Oscar Piastri. Certainly at the start, making that jump start, and obviously also the other drivers. Let's move on here. Max's start was phenomenal, guys. Starting on hard tires, starting with I put myself on the other side, starting on hard tires and managing to stay in the lead is a feat. Max won the race right at the start, right here, because the hard tire has cold front tires, so it's extremely difficult to manage them under braking into turn 1. Let's remember that when everyone lines up on the grid, it takes a long time before they reach their slot, and so you also lose temperature, meaning the tire loses temperature. And so you also struggle more in turn 1 compared to those starting behind who have had more time to warm up their tires. And despite this, guys, Max had a great start keeping behind even Sainz, who was their second. Sainz obviously didn't make any mistakes. And Lawson also started well, but they didn't dare the move on Max also because they didn't need to cover them. The important thing was to bring home that position. And instead, the Mercedes drivers had a little more battle up front, but the real battle we saw behind, in fact, with Hamilton and Alonso, we saw a bit of battle, and we saw later also Piastri's accident. But first, there was the jump start, both by Piastri and Alonso. Jump start that once again shows a not very clear weekend by Piastri, and with the mistake in qualifying, the mistake in jump start. So at the start, and the mistake immediately after the first lap, that a very serious mistake. Guys, you cannot make such a mistake when you are the leader of the championship. Let's see it together. By the way, I also show here the analysis again. Third mistake, that is 3 mistakes in a weekend. Incident in qualifying, jump start, and then incident on lap 1. Let's see it together. And let's analyze it, and then let's also see the start of the Ferraris. Hey, Piastri's accident was an accident in my opinion. Quite trivial. He had lost many positions, so he was very nervous at that moment and completely missed the braking point. he also went outside, and this penalized him even more because look a moment together. If we go to see where Piastri places himself here in braking, we see that he goes very outside, and here, in my opinion, he forced the braking too much. Had little grip, even on the front tires. He went into a lockup. You see that as soon as he steers, he locks up the front tires, and then he lost control of his car as if he were on ice. You see how much he then slides on the track because there's no more grip on the outside. Because it's a corner that you take, very tight trajectory there. And here you see Piazzi losing control and hitting the wall. A very serious mistake, guys. I mean, I want to reflect on this with you. I mean, between Norris and Piastri, Max Verstappen really deserves this championship because he's the driver who's been the most consistent at the start of the season. I mean, he's the one making the fewest mistakes. He's shown to deserve the championship more, to perform at a higher level. Let's remember, for example, the victory in Japan, the victory at Imola. I mean, these are strong victories, guys. Max has shown to be the best driver on the grid despite the car. On the contrary, the other two McLaren drivers, especially Norris, but also Piastri sometimes make these mistakes that they then pay for in the race, especially Norris, I would dare to say, because Norris, guys, has made a lot of mistakes this season. Needs to be highlighted. But now this triple mistake in one weekend by Piastri, because there are 3 mistakes in one weekend, shows us that both drivers are not yet ready to win the championship. One of the two will win it, because surely McLaren has the best car. But is it a championship deserved by the driver or more by the car? This is a question I want to ask you too. Or does Max deserve this championship more? Because today it really seems to me that Max deserves the championship more than Piastri and Norris. That said, we'll see Piastri's response next weekend in Singapore. If he manages to restart like in the past races, staying ahead of Norris, especially in the moments that count, so qualifying and race, it means that Piastri is really that cool-headed driver who can reset everything and then go strong again. If instead we find him a bit more in trouble compared to Norris and making mistakes again, then it means something has entered his head. He's been affected also on a mental level. This weekend, Piastri was certainly not clear-headed. After losing many positions at the start, he then made this mistake here, which, guys, objectively is not a world champion's mistake. So I'm sorry to say it because Piastri is a great driver. He has never made a mistake until now because anyway, if we want, he made some small blunders but big mistakes he hasn't made. In fact, I'll show you this very interesting graphic that shows us, now I'll show it here, how Hamilton from 2018 to 2020 did 48 races in a row without incidents, always finishing a race in Formula 1. And instead, Piastri from 2023 to 2025, 44 races in a row. So really many, 2 years without ever making a mistake in a race. I mean, he made it, but always finished the race. So a lot for Piastri. And he places himself among the greats between Hamilton and Verstappen in this ranking. So this shows us that Piastri is still a great driver. But this mistake of this weekend weighs a bit objectively. It shows us that he too has his weaknesses. That said, we'll also see if he will actually serve the 5-second penalty for the jump start in the next race or not. It seems not from what the FIA said, but even there. Then one makes a jump start and then crashes and doesn't serve a penalty. Alright, even Alonso served. Had to serve a 5-second penalty for the false start, so for the jump start because he did it too. But let's go see together the start of the Ferraris and start a discussion about the Ferraris all together. So first, let's go see Hamilton's start. And then he had that beautiful battle with Alonso. And then let's also go see the restart after the safety car of Leclerc, because that's a very interesting moment. Let's move on. Let's start from here. We see Alonso making the false start. Let's see if we can also see Piastri's. Yes, you can see it. You see here, false start also by Piastri. You see a moment before Alonso was caught by surprise, let's say by Piastri. And Hamilton's start is very good. Alonso brakes harder, but Leclerc covers the inside. And let's move on. We see that then here, Hamilton, taking advantage of the inside, manages to take a position on Alonso. And then they go side by side for the whole lap. In fact, for this whole first part of the first sector, Hamilton and Alonso remain side by side. Alonso doesn't give up that position, and yet we move on. Even here, Alonso remains side by side. He's still on the outside in this case, which then becomes inside, and then Hamilton is smart to take the position on Alonso, and therefore go behind Leclerc. And then the race between Leclerc and Hamilton, despite having two different strategies, was very similar. In the end, Hamilton had more pace in the final part of the race. He even caught up with Norris. We saw a first part of the race where the Ferraris were holding Norris back. They were also playing a bit of Verstappen's game, if you will. But we saw this first part of the race with Leclerc on medium tires in front, Norris on medium tires behind, and then Hamilton on hard tires behind Norris. This was the first part of the race. We saw Norris, who didn't have the momentum to overtake Leclerc. I mean, in a race where Norris has his teammate leading the championship and his rival in the championship is out of the game, he doesn't take advantage and finishes the race in just 7th position. I mean, do you realize earning what? Maybe 6 points? I mean, but this isn't a normal situation. I mean, what would Verstappen have done if he were in Norris's position? He would have taken risks. He would have tried everything to get past the Ferraris, to get ahead of Lawson as well, of course, to pass Tsunoda, to also pass Sainz. I mean, Kimi and Sainz. So, I mean, guys, Norris was too conservative in this race, in my opinion. He didn't make mistakes. But objectively, a 7th position with McLaren is really giving points to your opponent who is out. That said, Ferrari here didn't have pace objectively because it was stuck in that 7th, 8th position and couldn't move forward. Because the pace wasn't there. Everyone had already passed them at a certain point because they weren't going so fast in the early parts of the race. And then we saw this Ferrari with this wing so trimmed, so, let's say, dug out, we can say, in the upper part of the flap, and this wing so unloaded doesn't allow you to go fast on the straight in the DRS zone. And that's why we saw both in this part of the race, but also in the final part in the last 10 laps, a Ferrari that couldn't, despite Hamilton's DRS on Norris, pass Norris. And Hamilton had a significantly fresher tire. So, I mean, guys, this then affected the final part of the race with a Hamilton who had 15 laps on medium tires, while Norris had 14 on hard tires. Lawson had 32 on hard tires. So you understand well that despite Lawson having a much more used tire, Hamilton had a softer tire, a medium with fewer laps that he couldn't pass due to this rear wing so unloaded that Ferrari insists on using. It makes sense because it gives you more speed on the straight, especially when you don't use DRS. But in the DRS zone, you don't have an advantage, and you also unload the rear tires more, which slide more. So this is a bit of a strategy that Ferrari needs to reconsider, using this unloaded wing that objectively hasn't worked. That said, I want to show you first the overtaking of Leclerc on Norris that we mentioned earlier under the restart after the safety car. Let's watch them together, because this was a magic of Leclerc. Let's move forward. Let's see here on the straight. Let's remember that at the restart, you can overtake a car after the finish line. See here, he restarted perfectly. Let's see if we can see exactly the moment of the restart before. He's still warming up the tire. We see that they restart there, and Norris here was sleeping. Norris here was sleeping. Look where the others are completely to the inside. Here Leclerc has a confidence that Norris doesn't attack him inside that. He's devastating. I mean, it's incredible to think how a world champion, I mean a possible future world champion, namely Norris, because he could become world champion, doesn't go for an inside attack when Leclerc has a car clearly inferior to the McLaren at this moment. I mean, Leclerc has so little fear of Norris not attacking on the inside that he can close the line earlier. It's sensational. Fantastic move by Leclerc. Far be it from me to exaggerate. I mean, let's obviously give credit to Leclerc for this maneuver, but let's also give demerits to Norris for not even defending the position in this case. So this is a situation I wanted to analyze with you that is quite worrying. That said, as we said before, also talking about Piastri, who we then saw also watching the race from outside the circuit with the phone. Here Piastri was he was reflecting a bit on the trivial mistake he had also made. He made a mistake not worthy of a world champion, and see if he manages to rise from this situation and be better in the next races, because it's fundamental. That said, I also wanted to see together with you, we saw Piastri's accident. Let's take a look. Further ahead, well, also there. I wanted to show you this meme about Vasseur. Meet the potential man. Always talking about the car's potential. But the potential never shows up on Sundays. And this meme made me laugh. As the car bad? It's the most of the potential. Always the potential of this car that never comes out. And we can never have a good qualifying, never a good race. And so Ferrari always ends up outside the top 5, which is, in my opinion, the minimum goal for Ferrari. And in this case, 8th. And it's really a disappointment for the red team. Moreover, on tracks where the car's potential was supposed to emerge more, like Baku, Monza, even Las Vegas, it was supposed to perform better. But Monza and Baku have passed, and we haven't seen this car's potential, or at least we saw it on Friday. But let's wait for other races. Let's hope that on unfavorable tracks, Ferrari manages to pull out a better setup. Surely this low downforce setup doesn't work for Ferrari, meaning it doesn't allow them to overtake. It doesn't perform well even in qualifying. They can't place themselves in front because they suffer in lower temperature conditions, something that Mercedes handles better, as we've said. Watch out for Mercedes when temperatures drop, and they showed it once again both yesterday and today. And now I want to talk a bit about Max Verstappen's and Carlos Sainz's race. A great race by Max, guys. We have to congratulate Max because he didn't have the best car today. Red Bull is growing. Surely we also saw a great race by Tsunoda, who finished 5th. Well, sorry, 6th. So that's a lot. But guys, today Max really showed he's the GOAT of Formula 1, we can say, as the comment also says, the GOAT of Formula 1. He showed he could have a great race and be a 4-time world champion, starting ahead with hard tires. As I said from the start of the race, it wasn't easy, and then he did 40 laps on the hard, then switched to the medium and kept doing fast laps. But in the end, he also set the fastest lap in the last laps. I mean, a lot of stuff, guys. Really a phenomenal race by Max on a track that, by the way, isn't among his favorites if we want. Perez has always been strong compared to him in past years at Red Bull. And yet he had a great race. Made the difference in this case. Hats off to Max, who had a great race. I also want to show you the image of Carlos Sainz. A great podium. First podium in Williams for Sainz. Very important points for Williams that also weigh in the Constructors' Championship. Surely. So great. Great Carlos. We'll see can recover a bit because in a not so good period at Williams. Let's see if this podium will also allow him to maybe get more placements and points, putting more pressure on Albon, who made a lot of mistakes today, including the one on Colapinto, where he clearly rammed him. So we'll see if this could be a restart for Carlos to see him even more competitive in the upcoming races. But surely a great race because bringing a Williams to the podium was anything but expected. Let's also congratulate Russell because Russell, guys, comes second. He's always a bit underestimated because maybe he doesn't finish first like that. But he always has extraordinary races, especially this weekend when he wasn't at 100% physically. He managed to have a great race and finish second. A lot of stuff. He had more pace than Kimi 4th. Great race by him too, in my opinion, because he comes from a difficult period. He managed to show from yesterday's qualifying that he seemed almost excluded in Q1. He managed to get ahead close to Russell. And then today he even passed him for a certain period. Then Russell overtook him again. But these are important points for Mercedes at Ferrari's expense. In fact, let's take a look at the standings. 2nd and 4th Russell and the teammates. Sorry, 2nd Russell, 4th Kimi, and 8th Hamilton, 9th Leclerc. We see Mercedes with 290 points, Ferrari with 286. So Mercedes moves up to 2nd in the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari is 3rd, and they will fight for that position until the end. So it will be important for Ferrari to true improve in the next races, because the battle in the Constructors' standings is tight, and that 2nd place is worth quite a few millions. So it's better not to dismiss it. It needs to be considered, and it's important right up to the end. Also, pay attention to Leclerc, who fitted a new floor before the race. And this means they spent some money on the budget cap as well. A new floor, which is obviously following the incident we saw yesterday with Charles. And we'll see now if in the upcoming races Ferrari will also be able to extract the maximum potential. Here's the technical note on Leclerc, new floor for Ferrari mounted on Charles. That said, next race Singapore. Let's hope Ferrari will be able to bring out the maximum potential in Singapore even more. It will be important to have a good qualifying. So I expect a Ferrari that focuses everything on qualifying. Nowadays in this Formula 1, qualifying is more important than the race. We've said it many times. Dirty air greatly affects the tires. So you can't think of making a car that manages the tires well. I mean, you can make it, but that's not your priority. We've seen it with Williams. Williams is not a car that manages the tires well. Yet it manages to go very fast. Especially, of course, on those tracks where tire degradation is lower. Let's think, for example, of Baku and also Monza with the resurfacing, where tire degradation matters less compared to other tracks. This is definitely worth highlighting. But inevitably, qualifying in this Formula 1 counts more than the race. So we'll see if Ferrari will manage to improve its qualifying pace and position itself further ahead and suffer less from temperature variations from one day to the next. Because certainly on Friday, with the harder track, Ferrari was stronger. On Saturday, with the cooler track here in Baku, it struggled more. And this is a fact, and we'll see if it will manage to do better. That's the goal. I'll show you some images here on the podium. Sainz celebrating here. We have James Vowles and also Albon there behind, happy with Sainz's podium. It's nice to see Williams, which is a team that has suffered over the years, doing really, really well this season. So, a lot of good stuff. Let's see if in the next races they will be able to do even better, maybe. And have, better. Well, actually, anyway, have a good performance with both drivers. Here I also want to let you hear this audio together. Let's listen to it together from Lewis Hamilton. Let's listen to it.
And behind him is Charles 2 seconds. Charles 1.5 behind. Let it by. Fast.
Okay, this is the moment when Hamilton let Leclerc pass at the end, but didn't manage to. I mean, he still crossed the finish line ahead of Leclerc. So this was the moment I wanted to let you hear the team radio from Riccardo Adami with Hamilton. So, by the way, this was at the end. We saw this moment here. Well, in the end, it didn't change much because they finished 8th and 9th. I wanted to show you this situation here. Well, guys, having said that, we've commented a bit on everything about this race. It was a fairly monotonous race in the middle laps, in my opinion, because in the end, no one took a risk, a limit attack. But it was a race that was resolved in the first laps and the last ones, if we want. The most important positions were played in those laps. And so we'll see how the next races will play out, especially if Ferrari will come out of this bit of a crisis. Always Forza Ferrari, always on the side of the red, because you can see there's commitment. Even Hamilton, I see he has extra motivation. Even in the team radio, he's giving it his all. After the summer break, the motivation has returned to Hamilton. But the potential on Sunday is really missing. And this potential never comes out. So we'll see if it can be brought out in the next races. Let me know how you saw this race and your comments on Ferrari's race, Max's race, Carlos Sainz's race, and also Kimi Antonelli's. Tell me your thoughts on everything we've seen today in the race. As always, I remind you to leave a like, subscribe, activate notifications so you don't miss any videos on Formula 1 and Ferrari. This is all from Rastro. See you in the next video.